Let me speak plainly. And may these words land right where they need to. You see, when someone carries truth deep in their bones, they don't have to shout. They don't need to twist arms or raise their voice just to be heard. Truth has its own gravity, its own fire. It settles in the room like a holy hush, and those who've lived it, they know silence can thunder louder than any scream. But the narcissist, now that's a different spirit entirely. They don't wage war with swords or sound. No, they whisper in riddles. They trade in smoke, in mirrors, in making you second guess your own heartbeat. They spin webs out of your kindness, twist meanings till you start questioning what was once solid ground. And the wild part, they don't even have to lift a finger. They just sit there, quiet, calm, watching you unravel over puzzles they planted. Because that's how they win, not with brute force, but with distortion, with invisible strings and soft lies. One day they drop a word that bruises. The next, they give a hug laced with guilt, a smile that's too sharp, a sentence that leaves you thinking all night, and slowly, surely, your compass starts to wobble. You begin apologizing for things you didn't even do, fixing cracks they made, cleaning up messes they called loved. And you think, maybe if I explain myself better, maybe if I just give it a little more time. No. That's the trap. That's the whole setup. They don't want peace. They want the performance. They want your explaining, your emotions, your effort. Because every ounce of your effort is fuel. It feeds their illusion of power. But let me tell you something mighty. When a person finally stops trying to make sense of madness, when they step back, get quiet, breathe, and stop showing up to the chaos, that's when the ground starts to tremble beneath the narcissist's feet. And it's not rage that shakes them, it's your peace, not distance but detachment. That moment when your soul rises up and says, I'm done bleeding for battles I never started. That's when everything changes. Because the narcissist doesn't fear confrontation. They feed on it. They don't dread your tears, they drink them. What terrifies them is your calm, your sacred silence. The one that comes from clarity, not confusion. The kind that says, you no longer get a seat at my table, not because I hate you, but because I finally remembered my worth. Oh, they'll panic. Make no mistake, they'll shift like shadows. Suddenly, they're sweet again. Suddenly they remember birthdays, they weep. They plead. They remind you of old songs, old smiles, old memories that never truly felt safe. But listen close, every word is bait, every gesture, a hook with a ribbon on it. Don't bite. Don't step back into the role you spent years trying to rewrite. You don't win this war by clashing swords. You win by dropping yours entirely, by no longer needing to fight, by becoming someone they can't reach, can't rid, can't rattle. And here's the miracle. When the one who used to explain, stops explaining, when the one who used to chase, sits down and folds their hands, when the heart that once hoped endlessly for change says quietly, not anymore. The narcissist loses control. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because the battlefield vanished. And you, my friend, you came home to yourself. You reclaimed your rhythm. You remembered that peace isn't passive, it's powerful. And silence, when it's rooted in wisdom, when it's born from seeing things clearly, that silence is a lion. That silence changes the atmosphere. It declares without a sound, you don't get to own me anymore. This isn't about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's not vengeance. It's vision. Real power doesn't show off. It doesn't rush in. Sometimes it walks away with its head high, eyes soft, heart still. Sometimes it chooses quiet. And that quiet shakes the very bones of those who once fed on your confusion. So here's the truth, you don't have to win their approval. You don't need to explain your freedom. You just need to be unavailable to the chaos that used to call your name. That's deliverance. That's healing. That's what rising really looks like. And I promise you, when you finally stop speaking into the void, you'll hear something sweeter, the sound of your own soul saying, welcome back. I missed you. Let me tell you something sacred. The power they wore like a crown, it never belonged to them. It wasn't born in their chest. It wasn't carved from truth. It was borrowed. No, stolen. Stolen from the gentle ones, from the givers, from you. They fed on your stillness, your patience, your heartbeat. But something happened, didn't it? One day you went quiet. And not the kind of quiet that tiptoes, hoping not to wake the beast. No, this was the quiet of clarity. The kind that hums with freedom. The kind that says, I'm done sewing stitches into someone who never wanted to stop bleeding. And now, they're falling apart. Not because you screamed. Not because you lashed out. But because you stopped holding up their house of mirrors. You see, the narcissist never had a shape of their own. They were always contorting, always molding themselves to whatever light they could steal. And you were the sun they revolved around. Your reactions were their rhythm. Your emotions, but they're now. The show's over. The stage is bare. You've left the theater and taken the spotlight with you. But don't mistake your silence for emptiness. No, it's full of return, of wisdom, of reclaimed breath. That stillness you walk in now, that's not surrender. That's sovereignty. You don't bend to soothe their storms anymore. You don't shrink to keep their peace. You rise. You expand. And let's say this clear, not everyone deserves to touch your softness. Some souls weren't sent to hold your heart. They came to twist it, cage it, mute it. But you're done playing caretaker to chaos. You're done being the salve for someone else's self-inflicted wounds. This is not revenge. This is revelation. You don't burn down their empire. You just leave it. And you leave it still, with no need to explain, no need to scream, no need to throw stones. You just walk, quiet, wholly unshaken, and in that walk, you become unreachable. Because here's the truth: the narcissist doesn't know how to feed on silence. They can't manipulate calm. Stillness offers no stage for performance. And when you no longer dance to their tune, their entire circus falls apart. The empath's real strength was never in their pleading, it was in their boundaries. Solid, sacred, non-negotiable, not walls of bitterness but walls of self-respect. They don't beg, they don't warn, they don't tremble, they just stand. And in that standing, the narcissist begins to unravel. Because the narcissist never wanted relationship. They wanted supply. But consumption. And your empathy. You were deep heart. Not treasured, used, twisted, and now, that pipeline has dried up. Not with a bang but with a door. A door that closes and doesn't open again. There was a time you felt guilty for that, wasn't there? A time you thought love meant never leaving. That compassion meant exhaustion. But after enough betrayals, after the gaslight and the spinning, something inside of you stopped pleading and started seeing. You realized, I don't owe my soul to anyone who only shows up to feed on its pain. That's the moment, right there. The holy shift. The door doesn't slam. It shuts, perquinantly. And the other side, it grows cold. The narcissist is left pounding on a silence they never imagined. There's no echo now. No response. No more stage, no more audience, no more script. They prod. But the cage they once rattled, empty, and what used to be their playground, your attention, your kindness, your wide, open spirit, is now sacred, off limits, set apart. And that silence they hear, that isn't punishment. That's power. That's what it sounds like when a soul comes home to itself. But to the narcissist, that quiet is terror. That stillness is death. Because they were never whole without your mirror. Without your adjustments. Without your bending. You see, they were never real. You made them feel real. You reflected back an image they wanted to believe. But now the mirror's gone blank. And the mask can't hold. And here's the holy twist: your boundary wasn't rage, it was vision, not born from fear, but from honor. Not silence to avoid, but silence to align. It's a whisper now. I see you. Clearly. And I choose peace instead. And that right there is what they can't survive. Because the narcissist thrives in noise. They in confusion. They are kings and queens of chaos. But now, you've sealed up every crack with calm. Every scar with truth. There's nothing left to pull. No hook to sink. You rewrote the ending and you wrote yourself out. This isn't wild. This isn't wild. This is sovereignty. It's the stillness that comes after the storm. The kind you build with discipline, with devotion. You wake up now, not in survival, but in strength. You breathe, not to push pain down, but to rise up. You stop explaining, not because you gave up, but because you woke up. And you see it now, don't you? They never wanted to understand you. They just wanted to own you. But now, you're no longer for sale. Let me tell you what real power looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not some grand declaration posted for the world to clap at. Real power. It's that quiet rhythm that starts pulsing in your chest after the storm has passed. It's the steady beat of peace where chaos used to live. It's the morning ritual. The coffee poured with calm hands. The breath that doesn't tremble. The sunrise that doesn't ache. That's what they never saw coming, because the narcissist counted on your collapse. They bet on your desperation. They rehearsed for your reaching out, your pleading, your backslide. But that message, that apology, that last cry into the dark, it never came. Instead, you chose distance. Not distance dressed in rage or bitterness, but distance born from truth. The door that no longer opens, not because it was slammed, but because it was never theirs to knock on in the first place. And from that distance, they feel it. Oh, They feel it. Maybe they're lurking behind screens. Maybe they're scrolling through memories. Maybe they just sit with that hollow H and wonder why the air got so still. You know what that is? That's the death of their relevance. Because for the first time, they're not the sun around which you orbit. They're not the scriptwriter of your inner life. Their tricks land on silence now. Their bait hits clean air. There's no one left to bite. No one left to twist. You've become something terrifying to them. A mirror that doesn't move. A reflection that no longer bends to flatter the illusion. And in that stillness, they begin to crack. Not because you fought. Not because you roared. But because you stopped building the thing they called love. Their power was never in them. It was in what they siphoned from you. Your clarity, your kindness, your capacity to hold what they never earned. But now that well is dry. Not from exhaustion. But from awakening. You're no longer the healer to a wound that refused to close. You're no longer the heartbeat they borrowed to feel alive. You don't light up their theater anymore. You blew out the stage lights and walked out the back door with your soul intact. That, friend, is what healing looks like. Not a headline. Not a manifesto. Just the quiet of your own spirit coming home. Healing is you choosing not to react. Not to explain. Not to reopen the cage that used to hold your dignity. Healing is standing in your kitchen on a Tuesday morning, realizing you didn't think about them once. And if you did, you didn't flinch. They don't spiral because you shouted. They spiral because you didn't answer. They don't crumble because you burned their name. They crumble because you forgot it. To the narcissist, that silence you wear like armor. It's starvation. It's drought. It's death by irrelevance. Because their ego can't breathe in peace. They suffocate in stillness. And now, that's all you offer. No chaos. No drama. No reaction. Just a closed circuit. And that's the undoing. Because they never built a self. They built a mask. And they shaped it from your gaze. From your forgiveness. From your endless explaining. And when the gaze disappears, so does the mask. So does the illusion. You didn't abandon them. You reclaimed yourself. And every time you don't respond, every time you don't justify, every time you don't take the bait, you reclaim more ground. This isn't vengeance. This is vision. This isn't about punishment. This is about peace. They will come back, yes. They always do. Like moths circling a light they no longer own. They'll whisper, poke, try to resurface like a ghost in your new garden. You won't be there, not with rage, not with fear. You're gone, with grace. Because peace, real peace, isn't passive. It's powerful. And it's the one thing they can't imitate, can't twist, can't feed on. This is the end of their show. Not with curtains falling, but with the audience gone. And the greatest silence of all. It's not the one they hear from you. It's the one they hear inside themselves. When your soul no longer answers their call, let it stay silent. Let that stillness echo. Because what you've built now, it isn't a defense. It's a sanctuary. A rhythm. The holy ground they will never walk again. And that's the miracle. That's the freedom. That's the healing. And it's yours. Forever.